out with our first question, which is, and after I ask the question, anyone, please feel free to begin your share. And whoever begins sharing, everyone else, I just ask that you mute yourself. And so the first question is, what is your experience with the recent events, and what does it mean for you? Okay, don't all start at once. Okay, Mr. Snell, if you could just share what is your experience with the events that have been occurring with this uprising, and what does it mean for you? What is your reaction to what you are seeing?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This was part of my experience that I wanted to share tonight, and what this recent developments meant was that I was 17 years old, and I was on the bridge in Selma, Alabama, trying to get my grandparents registered to vote. And they tear gassed us. The Alabama State Troopers tear gassed us, and they beat us with horses. They stomped us. They broke John Lewis's skull. I was chased by a deputy on a horse, and the horse was freaked out by the tear gas. And so I had to run through this tractor factory to get away from this horse and this deputy that wanted to knock my brains out. And I saw a fence, and it was about 6 feet tall. And I jumped over the fence, but it was about a 12, 14-foot drop. And it looked like it was days before I landed on the ground. And so I looked around, and there was around 14, 15 other people that did the same thing that I had to do. And we was trying to negotiate how to swim the Alabama River so we didn't have to go through that throng of state troopers. And somebody yelled out, "That is all clear, come on up." And we came up, and there was people strewed everywhere. Broken bones, broken skulls, And so we had people up, and we carried them back to Brown Chapel Church. And as that particular point, we as a black person, as a black people, was broken and beaten. And that evening, they interviewed Dr. King, and they asked Dr. King, "Let's stop the march." And Dr. King said, no, don't nothing stop the march. The march goes on. He said, you have to understand that this is a mad dog. The hour before death. And he said, I'm asking all people of goodwill to come to Selma and march with us on Tuesday. $30,000 people. They came to Selma by cars, train, plane, buses in one day. 30,000 people. People of goodwill. All over the world, I see people of goodwill. That's how I view this current situation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snell. I just cannot get away from the idea that history is repeating itself in terms of what you have experienced and what is happening today at these moments all around the country, that people are rising up and are being beaten down by the police. It's heartbreaking, and at the same time, it does give me hope in seeing that it is all walks of life who are standing up to the white supremacist system of wanting to tear it down. Again, I would like to thank Amos Snell for joining us, Abdoulaye Odunsi, and Oba Seaward. Oba or Abdoulaye, do you have anything you would like to add of what is your experience with this movement and what it means for you?
So for me, it's a little tough where I've never protested in my life, and I've always had this perception that, oh, what can I do to change a huge entity like a government or country, business, just anything that is more than a conglomerate of, let's say, X amount of people. Let's say the barrier is 5, but some spectrum where I feel like there's just so much in it that I don't know how I can change it myself. But then I'm also conflicted with the reality that all change happens from a spark and then a collective coming together with ideally a common idea and ground, and through time, pressure, and other things, change does come. And with that, these conflicting thoughts of, oh, what can I do? Oh, there's a lot happening in my life right now. And something, the thing that happened with Floyd happened and was a catalyst for more protesting, as opposed to the countless other times in the past, probably even in the past 8 months. So it's definitely a thing where I'm conflicted. And then I also think, you know, what's the difference of doing something 8 months ago versus now? Okay, there's a group now. Should I join that? Should I keep moving, you know, dealing with the things that are happening separately in my life? It's, you know, there's a lot of things that have kind of been pulling me in a bunch of different ways where I feel like I'm kind of like a deer in the headlight where I don't necessarily know what to do besides to maintain and make sure that I'm mentally, you know, strong and healthy. So a lot of conflicting thoughts, and don't necessarily know where I stand when it comes to how to act and if I should act. Especially, you know, when a lot of people around me, I see them, you know, posting on social media, and, you know, there's a lot of ways to get your message across and do something. But also being a part, you know, of this age where everyone's on social media, sometimes I kind of see that stuff as a farce where, you know, I'm just pushing out other people's opinions or photos or screenshots that I see. And I do understand that, you know, some of them have some really interesting knowledge where I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. And it would be important to spread. But in the same sense, I'm like, are these people, do they feel strongly about them? This, is it more of a performance? There's probably a mix of all of it. But it's just, there's a lot and a lot of different ways to do it, and a lot of kind of not knowing, yeah, the right way. Even when I see businesses, you know, businesses come out and they claim they're making change, and let's say like a music industry is like, we're not going to call it urban music, we're going to call it something else. I'm like, okay, cool, but I don't really know. I feel like that's more performative, where, okay, you're changing a label of something, but it's still, you're categorizing, you know, this clump of music as this. It doesn't matter what name you give it. It's still the same system that's going on. So yeah, a lot of conflicting things. But that's kind of where I stand.
I applaud you. I applaud you, and I continue to applaud you, because I also feel that, like, do I participate or do I not? What is really happening? How should I really move in all of this? And I just really appreciate you maintaining your own mental wellness, which above all is most important for each and every one of us. By doing that, that's participating, us keeping ourselves strong and stable, and just in that, it's so powerful. What, do you have anything you would like to share with us, Abdullah?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Give me a moment. I apologize. I'm trying to make sure I'm clear with my words. Those who know me, who have met me, I am an African gentleman born in Lagos, Nigeria. I tell my African American friends, or even friends within this country as a general, through my experience and my time in this country, I may look like you, I may talk like you, but I'm definitely not one of you. Through my own experiences and things that those of you who live in this country have told me. Now, as far as in the current situation, also things I've seen through my life, the biggest thing I've noticed is there's a big disconnect between Mr. Snell's generation, the Mr. Obus, please forgive me, generation, and even someone a little bit younger, maybe I would say maybe in their early 20s. At some point, from Mr. Snell's generation, when he was willing to march and bleed and die, that generation, from that generation at that point to, I would say, my generation, somehow or another became quiet and more based on economics and upward mobility versus what I'm looking for, civil rights. So we became real quiet for about a good 20, 30 years. There may be incidents of issues that we have. For example, like even the OJ case where it was black versus white and those type of situations, but never a situation where I didn't find a generation where there was a lot of black pride in that regard when I came to this country. It came more towards the mid to early 90s with like Different World and some of those newer generation where they were going back to the motherland kind of component. It died off. I don't know what it was. I can't speak to it because I wasn't here during that time. From his generation to then, there was a resurgence of that going back home. But as far as in civil rights, no, there was still more of romanticism. Then at some point, of course, within the generation of his generation and my generation become older and becoming more aware of like, hey, this stuff is not changing. We're seeing it. We're going through the same problems our parents told us when we were kids to watch out for. And as adults, we're still seeing the same thing. And I'm sure even someone in their 20s is still seeing the same unfortunate situations. The biggest thing for us is there was never any kind of leadership downwards. So I can't tell someone, the next generation, this is what the previous generation and we did to further the cause, per se. It seems there was a loss, and now we just, from what I see, and from our generation, my generation and down, is more of, you need to do this and this, or this should be this and this. But I'm like, where's the game plan, the map, the structure? There's no structure. It's more of complaints and voicing issues when something happens is very reactive, not proactive, not strategic from what we learned through books. And a lot of times, unfortunately, the history that we've supposedly learned or won't is unfortunately only given to us to when we get in a high level of scholastics. Like, we can't depend on the average school system to teach us unless we either learn it from ourselves through television, our own discovery, or from a parent figure. And that's why I'm saying a lot of times with the parents and grandparents I see from a lot of my friends who are my age or younger, that was a disconnect. There was none of that discussion. It was simply, hey, make sure you go to school, get an education, don't cause problems. They taught a lot of the rules of how to be, not to cause an issue, but none of how to further the further process of societal goals. I personally saw that being done relatively quickly within the gay and lesbian community, how it went from being ostracized to being disrespected to all of a sudden being using the collective and using the system of sympathy. That's one thing, in my opinion, in America works the most. Shame and sympathy gets change done in America. And unless you have one, if not both of those things, nothing will happen. Anger doesn't get anything done. So when I see the protest, yes, that's fine, but we have the angle of shame first. And humility, that's the best way to then put into practice what? Law. When you do that, you get a better result. But when we have the situation where we have it now, anger and frustration in the streets, it's making some things happen. For someone like myself, when people may say, oh, what are you doing? Me, anyone who knows me, I'm always going to be pro my own people, anyone of brown descent, African descent, but at the same time as well, I'm also very critical because why? Most of who's burned me most of my life has been those who look just like me. But does that mean I shun away from that? No, that's just illogical. But understanding that every person has their own good, bad, and ugly, because even within the movement that Mr. Snell talks about, when the people came in 30,000 deep, there weren't just black people doing it. It was people of all colors. It's the same thing now we're seeing in this new generation. Those of us in my generation who befriended those of other races, they became either family members or friends of family that became now their kids, and their great grandkids are now comfortable with our kids and consider them family, and don't even see the per se color as they want to call it or nothing else. They're comfortable and realize there's nothing special about one race versus another. That's why I see, in my opinion, the young generation is doing a lot more success in culminating others around them, but also there's no immediate agenda of what are we going to get with these results. Yes, we have marching. Yes, we have frustration. Yes, we have people wanting to make changes in policy, but what are we going to have universally until if anything we know about politics and how it works in this country, until the word law, federal law comes into play, all we're doing right now is just wasting time until we get that physically done. And I say once again, we may want to talk about, if people talk about, change we need to do outside of the community. Once again,
let's not forget about what we need to do inside of our own community. Because I say, as a foreigner, yes, there's some things I see that I know this country's done far worse to your people, to your people than have done even to my own. As someone who's from the outside the country, I also say to people all the time, don't be fooled when Africans come here and try to pretend that we're better than you. The same people who sold you are the same people who come here and tell you they're better than you. That doesn't make any sense. So with that being said, it's not just one story that you need to read. Make sure you understand who we are as a people. So for me, as far as these are more philosophical things I'm stating now, but as far as what I've done practically for religious reasons, I'm a Muslim. I've always been good about donation. That's required within my religion. That's just something that's standard, and being charitable. So that's nothing new to me, to helping my fellow man. And fortunately, but unfortunately, the person that usually is unfortunate in this country is what? Someone looks just like me, a brown person. In addition to that, when it comes to uplifting those who are less than me and need help, I'm always an open tutor to any young man or any person. I'm an open tutor and any subject or things that I have. I'm free with my education and my books or anything I have available. When it comes to financing, I've donated and helped other people when it comes to their own business, including my own. You see what I'm saying? Because that's what we need to do and grow within our own community. Those are immediate impacts of which I can do and help within my own course of raising children, and also not having no disrespect, having children out of wedlock. Because why? We know within our community, the percentages are very low within having children with wedlock. It's improved within stats that what? We need to have we need to what? Build families. That's the number one way we can, combat a lot of the issues that we have within our community. Once we start dealing with some of those issues, we'll have a better result. I don't say that just as an outside African. That's the same thing that's it's already been going on in my community. And one of the reasons why a lot of times my friends and people tell me, how do you know what things are going on within this community, and I react in advance, not because I'm arrogant or because I just have some super knowledge. It's mainly because of what? Unfortunately, a lot of the nonsense that goes on here, it already happened here back in my country. And I try to tell people within this country, be prepared, be structural. But unfortunately, our community is very emotional. There's nothing wrong with having emotion, but structure is the only way this America works. Structure and might. And if we don't have any of that, we won't succeed. Well, unfortunately, we don't have structure, and might is done in two ways: either through military, we don't have guns, or through financial. We have money, we just need to organize it. That's all I have to say, y'all, in that regard, of my experience and what I see that we can make us better on what's currently going on. I'm sorry for everybody that's being hurt. I never want to see any person hurt, no matter who it may be. But understanding that what we can do to be better prepared and be aware of these situations, that is what I think I challenge all of us to do within our community.
Well, thank you, Abdullah. I really appreciate your input. I mean, I feel like you just led us into the second question of how or why we should participate in this movement. And it is about preparation. It is about what is the plan? How should we move forward? What is the plan? And so with that, Oba or Mr. Snell, how should we participate in this movement? What do you feel we should do, or what can be done? If you want to add anything else to what has already been said.
I do have a quick question beforehand. If I can get, I'd like to know like the ages of the other two, to get a
Yes,
better idea of, what generations we're talking about. I'm
yes,
24.
yes. And so Mr. Snell, he is our elder. I don't know, I'm guessing, I think he's in his 70s. Are you in your 70s, Mr. Snell?
No, I'm 39.
Oh, see, he's 39. Okay, we have a tenderoni, and
He's our youngster. He's our youngster.
yes.
I'm 39, but I just celebrated my 35th anniversary of
Oh,
my 39th birthday.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, good. Yes, ma'am.
congratulations.
But I if it's permissible, I would like to finish my experience with Dr. King. I
Yes.
don't want to, I want to upset anything or change the schedule or anything like that.
No, please.
So-
You have the floor. Please share.
Okay. I was born in a segregated South to a Baptist family in Selma, Alabama. One night, my family and I crouched on the floor while we heard the harsh screams of a black man who accidentally ran into the Ku Klux Klan's march when he was coming home from work. They castrated him and poured turpentine on his wounds, causing excruciating pain. This was the kind of terror and fear they instilled in us. I first met Dr. Martin Luther King when I was 17 years old. It was a Saturday afternoon in September 1963 when I served him a cup of coffee at a local cafe. He invited me to a mass meeting which took place 2 days later at Brown Chapel Church. After the mass meeting, Dr. King rallied us for a march to the courthouse to demand our voting rights. He told us some of us might go to jail, some of us might die, but we will rouse the consciousness of this nation and get our voting rights bill. I had never met a black man like Dr. King who had so much confidence. I knew it was going to happen the moment it said it. There was no way I could not be part of this movement. But the police arrested us before we got to the courthouse. That was September the 16th, 1963, the day after they bombed those 4 little girls in Birmingham, Alabama. I remember sharing one cell with about 80 people, including Dr. King. The jailer put sand in the cornbread and gave us 1 tub of water for the whole group. We stayed there for 3 days, eating nothing. But we was proud to be there because we was aware of what we was doing and what was at stake. The following year, in 1964, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, which legally ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. I was jailed for protesting a total of 4 times, twice with Dr. King. On March 7th, 1965, just a month shy of my 19th birthday, I was among the 600 marchers who attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge to begin the 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, which became known as Bloody Sunday. Our goal was to march to the state capital of Montgomery to get our voting rights. In a series of 3 protest marches, Bloody Sunday came to define the civil rights movement for the nation. As Amerikkka witnessed on TV, police brutality attacking peaceful demonstrators, unarmed civilians with tear gas, ran over by police horses and beaten with billy clubs. Famous news organizations such as CBS with Walter Cronkite told the world about Bloody Sunday, and instead of the intended crushing blow to the civil rights movement, it became an exponential force for peace and justice like never before. Within 5 months of the march, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was established, prohibiting racial discrimination in in voting. It was a dream come true, knowing that we were changing the course of this country. We won for so many people. Like the civil, during the first mass meeting I attended with Dr. King, he told us something that shook me to my core. He said, if you have reached the age of 16 and haven't found something that is so precious to you that you would be willing to lay down your life, even if you live to the ripe old age of 120, you're just as dead as if you died at 16. In 2015, I found out that President Obama was attending the 50th anniversary of the birth celebration in Selma. I wanted my grandchildren to experience this. I did not think I would be so emotional about this until I realized what a profound moment this was for me. Excuse me. The president arrived and said that the destiny of this country has been decided in many places, like Lexington, Concord, Gettysburg, Independence Hall, Kitty Hawk, Cape Canaveral, landing on the moon, and Selma, Alabama is one of those places. But because of your courageous action 50 years ago, you opened the doors for the women's movement to walk through, the gay movement to walk through. People all over around the world walk through that door. Like people in Tunisia and Tiananmen Square. I myself had to walk through that door to the Oval Office. So I want to thank you for your courageous actions. My realization was that I was in the presence of the President of the United States, the first Black president, was at the foot of the Evelyn Pearl's Bridge, named after one of the most vicious slave owners and grand dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. The president was praising me for my action 50 years ago at the spot in front of my 4 grandchildren. This was a golden moment for me. Thank you very much.
Wow, that is incredible history Thank you for sharing with us, Mr. Snell. And so since you have experienced, firsthand experience of being in the revolution, what do you see as a way for us to move forward? What words of advice would you give us in addition to what Abdullah already shared?
You go back to Gandhi and the person that Dr. King copied. You have to be the change you want to see. You can't sit on the sidelines. And it's very difficult now with the coronavirus and so forth. But there's so many other things that you can do, because of the virus. I live right across the street from a convalescent home. Most of the people that die are from nursing homes, in convalescent homes. I love to cook. The staff with the restaurants closed down. There's not no good restaurants in this area to begin with. So I cook food for the staff. You got to work 10, 12 hours taking care of sick people. You need nourishment. There's so many other things that we can do. You can get on the phone, call people, and, register to vote and so forth. You got to be the change you want to see. Mm-hmm. And I practice Buddhism. And I tell people how great they are. When I talk to people, one of the parting words is that you stay great. You don't have to become great. You're already great. But you need to cultivate your life by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. But that's my thing. I'm not trying to push that on anybody. But this is President Obama chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Before he was inaugurated. That's Tina Turner. And so forth. They Herbie Hancock. They chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and they started cultivating that life from within, and the way you are on the inside is the way your environment is going to be. And I think this is my experience. I did this. I did this. I'm so proud of myself. I didn't know this was going to happen, but 50 years later, President of the United States, and also the Congress, led by Paul Ryan. So all these people that did all this in Selma, Alabama, they deserve a gold medal. So they gave all these people, these 600 people, a congressional gold medal.
That is,
what I mean?
Yes, I sincerely thank you and all the 600 for your sacrifice and paving the way for all of us. And so, what I surmise from everyone's share is that prayer is important, that we must organize financially and keep our families strong, teach within our families first and foremost to have that strong foundation and just working on ourselves. Abdullah, did you want to share with Oba your age? He was asking everyone's age, so we have our senior and you.
Sure, I'm in my 40s. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in mid 40s. That's why I thought you said. I think we had a nice range of in the 20s, 40s. I thought mid to most maybe he was in maybe the early 30s. If I'd assumed otherwise, based on what we're discussing, and I knew that the gentleman was older than myself.
Yes. And so we all, Luna Nueva Wellness, we all thank each and every one of you for participating with us this evening. Would anyone else like to say anything in closing?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good closer, but it's definitely one that would lead to more discussion, but I'll just say it. One thing that I have been curious about is, going back in the past and, seeing all these movements and hearing, what Mr. Snell has said. It always seems like there is a leader and, a plan that people are, coming around to move towards. And I don't necessarily want to see that as an excuse in any way, but I'm kind of curious if what that would look like these days, having a leader and a clear plan moving forward, especially now when there's so many talking heads and outlets and, anyone, I guess just as before Martin Luther King was just, a human. But there's so many voices that, are speaking. It's kind of hard to figure out, which ones are the ones to kind of circle around. But then also in that pondering, I kind of think back and I'm like, okay, history is really distilled, when looking back. So, you might think of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but I imagine during that actual time period, there were many more people that, did very important stuff to move the generation forward and to move the movement forward. And maybe it's just kind of harder to see that when, you're zooming out, as years pass and you have these prominent figures that you hear about that are the ones that kind of are the face of the change. And it kind of makes me wonder, well, one, how could that look like now? And two, is it actually that we do need someone prominent to step in the forefront and be, I'm the one and I'm going to lead you to freedom? Or is it more, well, it's also that, but is it more, every individual is doing their part? You've got lawyers who are making laws, and making change with that. You've got people who are taking care of, their personal community, people taking care of, the neighborhood, and then, all these different pieces that come together to create power. And it's interesting, because looking back, it seems one way, but how do you kind of bring that into the forefront, especially when I didn't grow up during any of those times when there was, such inspirational, I guess there are inspirational figures now, but, in the history books, it's like grand, so just kind of curious.
But you have to go back to the point that you have to be the change. You have to be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
So you the man.
Mm-hmm.
You the man. And it's just like what you see all over the world is that people stood up to George Floyd situation. They took action. They took action because they want to see the change. They are the instrument for change. And we have to do that as well, you know, and if you want to look at President Obama's speech in Selma, Alabama in 2015, that man is so eloquent. That he is eloquent. And this is what he said, you know, I mean, to me, you know, is that courageous action I did 50 years ago is just like Lexington conquered Gettysburg, Independent Hall, Kitty Hawk, landing on the moon. Selma, Alabama is that kind of place. And I mean, and the kind of suffering that we had to undergo on the Jim Crow. I mean, you can't vote, you can't change nothing, you ain't got no voice and nothing. Here, I mean, you just like George Floyd. Everybody got their knee on your neck, and two deputies pinning your leg to the ground. You can't move. This is what it was like in Selma, Alabama, but it changed. It's changed, and it inspired the whole world. You know, and everybody have the Rosa Parks moment. And if we take advantage of it, you know, just like Gandhi said, you got to be the change.
Yes.
You know, we have to stand up.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for hogging thing, but you know,
No,
I'm that kind of guy.
no apologies needed at all. Your words were needed to be shared. Do you have anything to add to that, Abdullah, of Oba's question?
I definitely see. Can everybody hear me before I begin?
Yes.
Excellent. I definitely see where he's coming from. It's the same kind of component that I have an issue with. I would say, not really say issue, more of a concern with as well. When it comes to us, myself being a little bit younger, I mean older than him, but also being younger than Mr. Snell as well. As I said, you know, at the beginning of my comment, is that disconnect of what is the true structural component of how this is done. Because for those of us who are structural brain, like I see from my gather for him and I, emotion doesn't really do much for us. So as far as in rallying and rawing, that we leave those for those who can. And that's their ability and their strong suit. There's nothing wrong with that. But in addition to that, you have to have someone who's on a bullhorn, but you also have someone who's behind the bullhorn who has a clipboard. You see what I'm saying? And that's what I'm gathering from what he's trying to decipher is like, what is the best course of action? Now, is he saying does that have to be one specific individual? No. That doesn't have to be. Like, you know, as he said, you know, we have the mystical figures of, you know, MLK and Malcolm X from in the past. But as you said as well, there's multiple individuals who are involved in that, from Rosa Parks to Shirley Chisholm, all different individuals who were making change around that time in the 60s, either from ourselves, even Cesar Chavez, around that same point in time, who were going on that made impacts within the U.S. or even outside of the U.S. based on their actions or inactions, right? So when we're trying to figure out what is the next step, there's no one voicing or saying other people when I get are asking questions like him and I, but we're not getting any answers back. We need specifics, not generalities or even references. I need direct course of action, and that's the best way to go about it.
Could I interject one? Could I interject one little thing?
Please go ahead, sir.
You know, it's like if you want a leader today, contemporary, look at the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, this lady is kicking something.
yeah.
I mean, she heard about this virus the same time Donald Trump found out about it, and it's been damn near a month, and she haven't had one hospitalization, not one death.
Yes, sir. I recently heard
You know,
about that.
and when they had this, what you call, they had this,
The shooting.
huh?
The
They had the shooting.
yeah.
They had the shooting in New Zealand. She went around and hugged people. Just and don't forget now, all these hundreds of women that's been elected to Congress because, I mean, man, all you got to do is look around you. Women are taking over because men done screwed this world up. Women are the new leaders. Make no mistake about it. I mean, you talk about actual proof, look at the lady in New Zealand. That's what, and look at all these. And this is the 100th year. In 1920, the women got the right to vote. In 2020, it's 100 years. Now, some people got to wake up. Some people, and especially the women, 52% of the electorate is women, and you elected, you got snowed by a successful businessman that like to grab people by the private parts and ain't never had a successful business. You want to talk about Trump University? No, but you want to talk about that lady in New Zealand? You want to talk about the congressmen that been elected? You talk about all these mayors, they're like the mayor of Atlanta. You know, I mean, this is a new age here, baby. You know, there ain't gonna be no Malcolm X and all that kind of stuff. It's gonna be some people like Malcolm X. It's gonna be some people like MLK. But I mean, it's gonna be some people like that lady in New Zealand, that lady in Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get on the soapbox.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my daughters, they cutthroat. They cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these some tough women. You know, I mean, really tough. My granddaughter's gonna be tough. My granddaughters are gonna be tough. You know, but it's like the fire in the soul. You know, I mean, you are great just where you are. You ain't got to go to school to be great. You don't have to be president to be great because you're a human being. You are great. Now, you got to discover that. you know, and most people, like Martin Luther King, you know, like Gandhi, you know, it's the fire within. And if you can't discover that fire, no, no. You know, but women, and please allow me to just say this, you know, it's like women has a certain quality that men don't have. You know, I mean, motherhood, you know, is one of the greatest things on earth. Motherhood is one of the greatest things on earth. Mother Nature didn't endow me to have a baby because Mother Nature didn't crush me. But women can mess with a woman's child. Go into a lounge den and pick up a cub.
That might be the last thing you do if you do that.
Yeah, they say he would have been 33 on his birthday. You know, because I mean, no. You know, motherhood and Buddhahood. I'm a Buddhist. Motherhood and Buddhahood is close akin because of the compassion. Mother really care for her child. And it's just like we should care about each other. We should try to emulate mothers. And I mean, this is what I picked up from my 50 years of practice in Buddhism. You know, hey man, no, we don't need nobody to lead us. And if you do need somebody to lead you, you know, pick the person that has the most compassion, the most caring, you know, and a man, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she got my heart. She got my heart. That's other people, women that lead, that are leading countries. That I mean, I'm just so impressed with this lady, man. I'm sorry just to say, but I'm just so impressed with this lady. She don't have no coronavirus in her country for over a month.
Right.
And we done lost 120,000 people.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm impressed.
Yes.
I'm sorry, miss. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox again, but
It's okay. We appreciate your TED Talk. It's so informative, and all the words everyone shared. And Oba, your question, it did come up in our previous meeting of, you know, what do we do? Who do we follow? And one thing that I am doing is just following me. But in addition to that is that not really looking to one leader, but that we all become leaders, that we all educate ourselves, that we find our niche of the best way that we ourselves personally can participate. Because for me, when there's one leader, then if that leader gets killed off, then the movement dies. Whereas if we are all empower ourselves to be leaders, then the movement can't stop.
I've been there.
because there are so many of us. And so
But
we
you
do
see,
want to,
may I interject? All around the world, they are leaders, and these people are inspiring other people all over the world. I
yeah,
mean, 20-some days. Yeah, we ain't never had, man, we ain't never had no 20-some days of protest. For what? We ain't never had that. We got it now.
yes,
So people are pissed. People
yeah,
are tired.
yes,
We got leaders. Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry, miss. I'm sorry, miss.
No, no worries. I concur with your words that we do have leaders. I mean, I spoke with one of my friends in Utah, Salt Lake City. He said there were protests in Salt Lake City. Of all places that I just thought, oh, this must be the most serene place, but no, it is popping off everywhere. And
No. You got people in Israel,
yes,
in Germany.
yes,
They all over the world.
yes, all over the world. And so, in closing, if all of our participants, if you could just leave us with one word, what would it be?
Prosper.
Sure. So go ahead.
Oh, so you talking to me?
Yes, all the participants, just one word. If you could say one word, what would it be to close our meeting?
Like I said, I'm a Buddhist, and the Buddha said, if you can chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with your whole heart, you will naturally become endowed with the Buddha's 32 features and 80 characteristics. One word, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
Thank you, Mr. Snell. What's your
Thank you.
word, Abdullah?
Structure.
Structure. Thank you. Oba, what's your word?
It was prosper.
Prosper. Yes. Yes, I love it. And so, with that, I thank each and every one of you for joining our Monday ShareAbout. And my word is power to the people. Oh, wait, that was more than one word, but I can't count. Thank you again for joining. And I hope you all have a good evening.
Send y'all. Thank you,
Stay
everybody.